have a question. What the hell happened to America? So despite its military and economic might, it's becoming painfully obvious that the United States' power, its influence, and its credibility on the world stage is declining. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rogan, and this is This Bahamian Gyal. On my platform, I do social commentary and reaction videos. I encourage my audience to have private conversations in public. A warm welcome to all of my new subscribers, and of course, my day ones and my members on my channel. Thank you so much for your support. So let's just get into today's video. I've got a lot of things that I want to address in this episode. A lot of things that have been swirling around in my head, and I hope I don't make this video too long, but I'm going to start here. Let's just start with America's foreign policy, which to me has been incredibly unpredictable and at times very chaotic. This chaos has led to the U.S. withdrawing from some pretty important international agreements over the years, and has also led to a trade war with two of its closest trading partners, two of its closest geographical allies, Mexico and Canada. In the past 2 months alone, President Donald Trump has imposed and then suspended and then imposed and suspended tariffs a head-spinning amount of times. So as the world watches, as this, I don't even know how you call it, a political telenovela plays out, what I'm seeing is a lot of European countries now shoring up their own resources so that they can operate with more autonomy. What does that mean? Translation, so they don't need America as much, if at all. Here in the United States, where I live, and I'm saying that because I know a lot of you are just coming across my video for the first time, we're seeing a lot of social unrest and a lot of political polarization. And if you've been watching the news, you've seen that the Trump administration is, through DOGE is gutting a lot of federal jobs. Over 103,000 federal workers nationwide have already been fired. I live in Washington, D.C., and now I'm hearing on the radio so many advertisements for people who have been fired from the federal jobs to, get shelter if they need shelter, to come to food banks if they need food, because a lot of people were living paycheck to paycheck. Not everybody who was working in the federal government was making a ton of money. And so for a lot of them, they probably don't have money for rent, because a lot of them are renting, or they don't have money to, send their kids to daycare or whatever, or even buy food. So now I'm hearing a lot of ads on like local radio stations saying, come to the food banks, come to this place, that place, just to get some help. So this is really having a serious effect. And especially for not just the federal workers, but you have a lot of companies, local mom and pop shops that are very dependent on these workers coming into their organizations. Imagine if you had like a little deli in DC and it was frequented by a lot of federal workers. A lot of those people being gone now means that you have less foot traffic coming into your building, which means you don't have a job yourself, and the workers who work for you don't have anyone to serve, so they don't have a need to be there. So now I'm reading a lot of companies saying, they survived the pandemic just by the skin of their teeth, and now they're going to have to possibly, very likely, close up shop because there's just no customers there. We have almost 2.5 million federal workers in the U.S., and this isn't including workers who are at the post office or who are in the military. And 17% of those workers are here in Washington, D.C. I would seriously suggest that people keep an eye on these things, because I was just reading an article that cited Moody's. If those of you who don't know who Moody's is like a credit ratings agency. And they said that Washington, D.C. is headed for a recession this year. You have a lot of Americans right now who are still recovering from environmental catastrophes. What am I talking about? I'm talking about those wildfires on the West Coast in L.A. I'm talking about these recent hurricanes that we've had that have destroyed a lot of people. A lot of people can't even get their houses rebuilt because insurance won't pay. So they're dealing with job insecurity. They really don't know what's going on, and they still have to deal with the fallout from these environmental catastrophes. So it's looking very unsure for Americans now moving forward. You have farmers right now, because of these tariff wars, these trade wars with our partners, they have a lot of supply, a lot of crop that are just going to rot because no one is there to buy it. A lot of these organizations that would have ordinarily bought it have been dismantled. So they're just going to have rotting crops. Just wanted to take a second to say thank you so much to all of my channel members. And also, if you want to become a channel member, you'll see all the ways that you can do that in the description box. If you are getting value from this video, you're enjoying it, please give it a thumbs up. Also, leave comments down below. And if you want to support this channel, you can scan the QR code on your screen to buy me a coffee, or you can pick up some merch in my merch store. All of the details are down below. You can even see the top shelf at the bottom of the screen so that you can just buy a hat, hoodie, whatever it is that you like. Back to the video. I'm going to talk about something that a lot of people just don't care to acknowledge. They think America is so big and mighty and so powerful, and it is, that America doesn't need anybody in the world. They need us. That is inaccurate. America needs the world. And you know what? I would imagine that people in Minnesota, when they heard that Canada was saying they're going to cut Canada's Ottawa's premier was saying that he would cut the lights off, they were very, very clear about how much they needed the world, or they needed Canada. So I'm going to talk about how America has been angering its allies. There is no denying from me that the once solid relationship that America had with all of its allies is now strained. I think people are going to play nice just to avoid problems, but I think the credibility of this country has been definitely damaged. I want to play a clip from Ontario's Premier Doug Ford when he made the comment that there would be retaliatory tariffs against the United States after President Trump took action. So just take a listen.
We also need to be ready to dig in for a long fight. We need to be ready to escalate using every tool in our toolkit. That includes surcharges or even outright restrictions on the critical minerals and electricity we supply to the United States. The critical minerals and electricity they depend on. Today, I'm writing to every senator, every congressman and woman, and the governors from New York State, Michigan, and Minnesota, telling them that these tariffs persist. If the Trump administration falls through on any more tariffs, we will immediately apply a 25% surcharge on the electricity we export. We will not hesitate to shut off their power as well.
So besides pissing off our allies, America also managed to piss off China by imposing 20% tariffs on their products.
Its response to US tariffs has been swift and strong. For 2 days in a row, it's put out this statement. If war is what the US wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end. After the session, a chance to try and grab the thoughts of the country's elite. What impact will the trade war have on China?
I think it'll have little impact on China because we treat others the way they treat us.
And I think that's, kind of what a lot of countries are going to be doing right now. Like I said, bolstering their own defense, standing up to America. I think we also have to remember that there are a lot of Americans who do not like what's happening right now, especially what's happening as it relates to Canada. Canadians may come across as very docile or, soft, or, like you could run over them. I know Canadians. Ain't nothing soft about Canadians. They're kind, they're nice, but they're nationalists. They love their country. They'll defend their country. They'll protect their country. And they are quick to close ranks when somebody from the outside is doing something that's going to affect them. And so you saw a lot of Canadians, for example, saying, I will not buy American products. And they make a lot of stuff in Canada. They make a ton of stuff in Canada, so they can afford to just sit at home and eat and drink at home and whatever, and not shop for American products. I want to talk about how, because all of this is, to me, contributing to America's decline, but I want to talk about how the international community views America. And I'm going to go back a bit and talk about when the United States made that decision to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. I know this isn't a very sexy topic. It's not one that people pay attention to because it's not salacious. It's not like politics and gossip and that sort of thing, but it's something that people really need to pay attention to. This is something that scientists have been warning about, that, when we're having climate change, we're going to see more wildfires. We're going to see sea levels rising. We're going to see unprecedented levels of flooding. And these are things we're already experiencing. You go and talk to the folks in Los Angeles and who lost everything who lost everything during those wildfires. And so my point is, for Europe, this is a top priority. This is not a joke. They are taking this very, very seriously. And so for America to withdraw from this agreement, it really showed that America wasn't really committed to dealing with a very pressing issue that has not only affected America, but it affects the world. So now you have the UK and Germany and France now questioning and possibly doubting whether the United States is truly committed to fighting climate change. And I guess it makes sense because here in the United States, we get 15% of Americans don't even believe that climate change is real. Let me look that study up I saw. It was in the journal Scientific Reports that said that climate change denialism is highest in the central and southern parts of the United States. It says more than 20% of the populations of Alabama, Mississippi, North Dakota, and Oklahoma don't believe in climate change. Climate change is real. And, you know, I hail from a country, a Caribbean country, that is no stranger to hurricanes. And I remember when I was back home in the Bahamas, I remember, oh Lord, I forgot the hurricane's name. I'll put it on the screen later on. But I remember, and I'm somebody who is accustomed to hurricanes. I remember saying, I've never experienced a hurricane like this. It was so ferocious, so sustained. Like it literally sat over the Bahamas for hours. Like, break up already, get out of here. It wouldn't move. And I see these changes, and I don't know how people can deny that climate change is real. I don't. I asked in the beginning, what happened to America, or what the hell happened to America? And it really brings me to this next topic about how I'm now witnessing so many countries are now seeking alternatives to the US when it comes to leadership. If you are paying attention, you will see that the European Union and China are now stepping up into roles that were traditionally held by the United States. And I'll give you an example. China right now is offering trade agreements, China, and security guarantees to secure that influence that the United States once had. You'll see countries around the world are now lessening their reliance on the United States. Let's talk about China's influence in Latin America and the Caribbean. Since the early 2000s, we've seen China, through its state-owned enterprises, going into Latin America, going into the Caribbean, and offering major support, whether it's through help with energy or infrastructure. It's happened even in my own country. They've built national stadiums. They've helped with road projects. They've even funded hotels. So they're going in not just in the Bahamas, but in many other Caribbean countries and saying, hey, you got a friend in us. What do you need? You have infrastructural projects that need to be completed. We'll fund it for you. No problem. So there's a great deal of economic engagement there. So when you look at all of this, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but when you look at all this, China really has taken a peek at the US's playbook and said, I'm going to do this play, I'm going to do this move, I'm going to do that to secure alliances with countries in the Western Hemisphere. Another reason why I feel that the US's credibility and influence are declining is because the world is watching the US operate with a serious double standard. And I'm speaking specifically as it relates to the war between Russia and Ukraine and the war between Israel and Palestine. Both of those invasions have led to widespread killing of civilians, innocent civilians, women, children, elderly people. But the U.S. continues to offer unfettered support to Israel while condemning Russia, at least when Joe Biden was in office. According to Politico, Washington's, quote, staunch backing for Israel's war in Gaza likely hurt its popularity. I want to look at this 2024 Democracy Perception Index that Politico cited. And it says America's international reputation has taken a hit since early 2023, particularly in Muslim countries where Washington's unwavering support of Israel in its war in Gaza has proven intensely divisive. Now Europe is joining the trend. And according to Foreign Policy, the US's one-sided policy leaves Palestinians and aid workers vulnerable while Israel acts with impunity. So for me, there's no doubt that the Muslim world is watching this. They're watching how America is moving, how this is all playing out. And I think that these inconsistent approaches are going to have some serious repercussions in the long term for America.
You write of America in decline. Can you set out for us why this, the start of 2025, is such an important moment in that story?
The United States cannot order events in the world the way it used to. The Middle East was relatively quiet for decades under American tutelage. When there was an Arab-Israeli war, it was the Americans who quickly ended it, essentially. That's no longer the case. The Americans used to dominate the Asia-Pacific. Now China does. So America's place in the world is weaker than it used to be. America is poorer than it used to be. And America is more decadent than it used to be.
What I've also seen is that a lot of countries are now, and I said this earlier, but they're looking to other countries that they ordinarily probably would not have even considered, just to form alliances with them, to have some sort of friendship with them. And that includes China and Russia. You have countries that are like, yeah, America can be a friend, but I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket. So I'm also going to see what China is offering or what Russia has to say. I want to read another quote here from Responsible Statecraft. And this is an online magazine for the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. And this article warned Donald Trump that he shouldn't overestimate the U.S.'s influence on the world stage. And this is something that, I mentioned a little earlier. Let me read this. It says, the United States has been at risk for some time of overestimating its influence internationally by clinging to experiences from the past. I remember saying in a previous video, and people got upset, I was like, listen, just because, we're a superpower doesn't mean we'll always be a superpower. I certainly hope we are. I would never want America to fail, but I've seen other empires throughout history that fallen. That were super mighty. So, I'm just saying, like this article says, don't overestimate your influence. When they're just talking about influence, I would also say don't even overestimate your power. It says, in the immediate aftermath of World War II and following the implosion of the Soviet Union, Washington exercised virtually unchecked power and influence due to circumstances that no longer apply. Other powers decimated in World War II have recovered, and now powers have emerged, and new powers, have emerged. The return to a multipolar system is taking shape. And like I said, you have a lot of countries and people who are now who are not just looking to America, they're now looking to other countries for help to be friends with them. Because if America decides today or tomorrow that it wants to gut a program that benefited your country, and that's your only friend, then what? Then your people are at a loss. But if you put your eggs in different baskets, you could say, okay, that basket turned over, my eggs shattered over there, and I can go to another basket and get some help. Finally, I want to talk about the racial unrest in America. I think this is also leading to a decline. A lot of people are really tired of the racism. And not just the racism, but what comes along with that. It almost feels sometimes that we're back in the 50s, at least for me. I don't know how you all feel. Just the attitudes. It might not be indeed just yet, but certainly in terms of attitudes. Not sure if you guys saw the news, but that neighborhood in Lincoln Heights in Ohio, and if you've not seen my video where I talked about them facing off with neo-Nazis, please click above, up here or here. I did that a few weeks ago. For those of you who didn't watch that video, a group of neo-Nazis, they had their faces covered, they had swastika flags, came into this area, hung their flags on an overpass, and were taunting motorists, black motorists, as they went by, calling them the N-word, just saying the most vile things. But they didn't expect that the people in that community would fight back. And so the people confronted them, and I think the neo-Nazis had to run away. Police got there and they said that there was nothing that they could do because they had a right to protest. These neo-Nazis had their weapons and they were brandishing them, around for people to see. And so the people on the community, this is a historically black community, by the way, Lincoln Heights, they got a hold of one of their flags and they set it on fire. And so as a result, because they say police shocked them by not doing anything, because they said, well, it's freedom of speech and they can protest peacefully if they want to, even if it means screaming the N-word at somebody and having a weapon, threatening people. I guess it's okay. So as a result, this community has formed its own watch group.
These aren't police officers or soldiers.
We're business owners, we're fathers, we're sons, daughters.
These are civilians, members of the Lincoln Heights Safety and Watch Program.
It's a duty. Okay, let's go.
The duty, protecting their neighborhood, the majority black village of Lincoln Heights, Ohio. After neo-Nazis held a rally here last month, carrying rifles, waving swastikas, and hurling racial slurs, just moments before children were let out of school. At the time, law enforcement officials said the neo-Nazis did not break any laws, but an investigation by county prosecutors is ongoing. Weeks later, the KKK came with these flyers.
First African-American community above the Mason-Dixon line of
Safety and Watch Group spokesperson Durrance Daniels says the police did not do enough, which was more chilling because the town was founded in the 1920s as a safe haven for black residents.
Lincoln Heights is our home. If somebody broke into your home, you call the police, and the police says, if they do it again, we haven't broken any law, so we're just going to allow them to break into your home again. What would you do?
Are you worried at all that having a potentially armed response could just create more friction, create more danger?
I'll answer that by saying I've never felt safer as a black man in my community than I have right now.
I'm very curious to hear what you all think about this community forming this group. I personally don't have a problem with it. I think a community's job is to protect itself. And I've said this before in multiple videos, not just from external threats, but internal threats. I really wish that other black communities would see when gang violence and all that sort of stuff is happening in their community, that they would speak up about it and take the same steps that they're taking to shore up their community against these neo-Nazis, to do it even against these internal threats. But right now we're talking about these neo-Nazis. And so I don't have an issue with these individuals protecting their kids, protecting their families, because we just don't know what could happen. These men have had weapons, and they certainly, please bear with me. I just came back from vacation with a horrible cold. But like I said, I don't have an issue with the community shoring up itself, looking out for its family members or its neighbors. That's what community is all about. Just let me know what you think about that. I don't think that America is just going to implode overnight. I think we're at a crossroads. And if we continue along this trajectory, I feel like we're definitely going to be in a rapid decline. Because once you start losing credibility and losing influence, the power goes. People don't look at you the same way anymore. They don't trust you. And a lot of people would just dismiss these things like, I don't need nobody to trust me or whatever. No, you do. You have men and women who are in the armed forces and they're defending this country. Surely you'd want to know if something were going to pop off in your country. And that doesn't always come from Americans. That comes from people outside of the country, sometimes giving you intel to let you know what's going to happen in your own country. That happens quite often. And so you don't want to kind of get arrogant and think that you don't need anybody, because you do. Anyway, drop your comments down below. I didn't want this to be a long video, but I thought, there were so many things in my head that I wanted to talk about, wanted to address. And so I definitely do look forward to hearing from you guys and letting me know what you thought about the video. And also, do you see America in a decline? There is a lot going on internationally. But internally too, like I said, with all these firings and people's livelihoods being upended, it's devastating for a lot of people. If you're a federal worker who has lost your job, I'd love to hear from you in the comments section. How are you coping? What are you doing now to provide for yourself and provide for your family? Like I said, a lot of people were living paycheck to paycheck. That's a lot of Americans in this country. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. But drop your comments down below. If you like this kind of content, please check out my social commentary playlist. If you like my channel, please go ahead and subscribe. If you like bold, unafraid, fearless commentary, where I call it as I see it, that's you, that sounds like you, then definitely go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at this Bahamian Gyal and also on my blog at thisbahamiangyal.com. All right, let me go take my medication. See you guys later. Bye.